Gates film got it right in the sense that it's a bit of a catastrophe, but not the sort of computer game that you have with all these numbers of aircraft coming down and flying on them. But the silly Grossman captured the atmosphere of a typical crossing from the point of view of the Russian soldier. And he was writing about the 13th Guards Division, which was that unit that fought around the Borodino railway station I mentioned. They lost 75% of their strength in a matter of days, and the railway station changed hands about 15 times. And when we go along the river here, you'll see an inscription on the side of the bank, which is the 13th Guards Division stood here and fought to the death. By standing our ground, we conquered death. Now, Vasily Grossman, probably many of you have read about him, is a renowned Soviet war correspondent, and he captured the atmosphere of the crossing from eyewitness participants, and he wrote this. He said, "Suddenly, a tall and thin bluish-white column of water sprang up about 50 meters from the barge." This is the artillery coming in. "Immediately after it, another column grew up and collapsed even closer, and then a third one. Bombs were exploding on the surface of the water, and the Volga was covered with lacerated, foaming wounds. Shells began to hit the sides of the barge. Injured men would cry out softly as if trying to conceal the fact of being wounded. By then, rifle bullets had already started whistling over the water. So the nearer they get to this side of the bank, the more vulnerable they are to machine gun fire, rifle fire, and mortar fire." And he writes, "There was one terrible moment when a large caliber shell hit the side of a small ferry. There was a flash of flame, dark smoke enveloped the ferry, an explosion was heard, and immediately afterwards a drawling scream as if born from this thunder. Thousands of people saw immediately the green helmets of the men swimming among the wreckage of wood rocking on the surface of the water." Now, the Russian soldiers telling their stories about this after the war, many of them said that as the boats are approaching, they could feel the heat from the flames of the city. So literally they're going into this flaming hell that's coming up before them. But don't be taken in by the Enemy at the Gates, my favourite film, on the Battle of Stalingrad, but they all come ashore and they're all panic-stricken and they're all rushing around like headless chickens. Nothing like that at all. As they came ashore, they're picked up by NCOs and officers, and they're led as best they can, because they're under fire, off the bank into assembly areas on this side of the bank of the river, and then they're taken by officers to occupy positions forward in the city. And I'll take that up when we get off the boat and we go down to the Panorama Museum and Pavlov's house. Now, what you'll get from this is the linear expanse of the city. We're only going to motor up and down and see a third of it, but what you'll see is the change of character from the residential bit, which you see down there to the south. Remember how long this city is. This is the civic park bit, and you'll notice the distinctive change in the character of the buildings. You'll see the Mother Russia statue on the Mamiev Kurgan and that awful football stadium in front of it. And then further on, you will then immediately pick out the factory district. Now, you know, it's one of those ironies that when they put the Mother Russia statue up, it was in an epic location and really captured the spirit of what's going on here. And since then, they've been trying to flood it with IKEA-shaped buildings, you know, cauliflower football stadiums and all the rest, which is very sad. And I think a lot of the Russians thought it was very sad. And of course, all the guys who came for the World Cup didn't give it a second glance. So, but you will see that. In the early days, really epic, stands up there in isolation. And if you wait with your camera, you can probably get a picture through the gap, but it's becoming a little congested now. Okay.
To the boat?
Yep, let's go.
All right, let's go.